that IT forgot about a long time ago. But we're just started to look at it
Yeah,
in the last few years.
again, maybe cloud services. Cloud has been in cloud services for forever, for a long time, maybe and under different names before in banking and other industries. Until now, cloud services are not accepted or in the broadcast industry. What do you think is that? The question is for everyone.
It comes down to money. I think. At the end of the day, you know, I buy a hard disk from Harris, it costs me 10 times as much as if I buy the same hard disk from an IT supplier. While there's money to be made out of broadcast and broadcast equipment, manufacturers aren't going to be looking into how they can make it more efficient. Look at the channel-in-a-box suppliers. I know they don't like calling it that, but they're channel-in-a-box suppliers. None of them are virtualizing those processes. You know, you buy 2 big boxes for each channel, or one N+1 or whatever, and no matter how many complex graphics or crawls or tickers or whatever, it's the same processor. They don't break those down into process units like we do in the cloud, and they don't, even if it was in the cloud, it wouldn't be a proper cloud product. So I think it's the age-old thing of broadcast being a long way behind the curve. I mean, you said, can IT bring anything to broadcast? It is. You walk into my server room, try and find the video equipment. It's all servers. Then
you're
and
saying
it's all
that the broadcast manufacturers who are not embracing that will be left behind.
This comes down to culture.
I think there's a security concerns about the cloud in terms of content as well. If you've spent millions of dollars on a new drama series, you'd be pretty loath to upload it to a cloud somewhere and not, you know, be concerned about.
I know this is the security is always the case, but what about banking? Banks use cloud services, and we put our money in the banks. Why are we concerned about?
Television is far more important than money.
I mentioned this last year. You know, security is always a concern, and I think this is part of the education as well. Security isn't a problem in the cloud, actually, but educating content owners to accept the fact that it's not a problem in the cloud is the issue.
Yes, I'd like to take on Dominic's point a little bit further. And I think what we're seeing, and Hassan, what you mentioned, and I believe Dr. Riyad in this morning, you mentioned about the increase in the number of channels in 2011. And 2011 was a problem year for our region. We all know this. But then the demand, this is driven by demand, obviously. And there is more and more demand. And the more and more demand is putting more pressure on these guys to deliver what the viewers are demanding in a quick way and in a proper way. And obviously viewers are demanding news, are demanding more sports, and they are demanding them on all sorts of platforms. So these guys are obviously under enormous stress to deliver this and to deliver it to the various platforms. So going back to your first point, Dominic, if we as a manufacturer are going to develop a platform that will help you with the targeting the files, or with looking at the files from the start to the end of the workflow, then that process needs to be an automated process. The last thing we would like to do is put extra pressure on the director who is following a football match, or the producer or the operators, and ask them to do extra activities on top of what they are doing. So if we are going to be able to produce content that can be distributed on all the platforms and in a timely fashion, then the creation of this process needs to be done in an automated way.
Frank had something to...
Yeah, no, we had been talking about the cloud, and I think obviously the content security aspect is very important to us, but also the availability, and I think enterprise and broadcast have different concepts of availability. We work to 99.99% availability, and I don't know, in fact, we've seen some proof of concept on the cloud, but that needs to be scaled up to perhaps hundreds of channels of HD content. And does it then still have the availability and the connectivity, the web connectivity for us as users to be able to see what that content is doing, to be able to repurpose it and to edit it while it's in the cloud. And also, when your screen goes black, who do you yell at in the cloud?
Yeah, the cost, I think, of connectivity in the region is still extremely high. Steve mentioned working with the telco operators and CDNs and so on. Afdal, where do you store your content now?
See, I agree with Dominic when he said it's about culture, you know. I mean, it also depends upon what broadcast, are you a public broadcaster, are you a private broadcaster, what type of content you have. I mean, if you have some exclusive content, then you will have issues like security concerns when you're hosting on a cloud. But I mean, if it's a generic content which is available to people from anywhere and everywhere, then I don't think security is such a big issue. I mean, having said that, I know that one of the biggest broadcasters in India, like Star is one of the biggest broadcasters, and they have moved to the cloud-based system. They have completely outsourced the entire production, complete. I mean, production, post-production, on-air fast, everything is completely hosted by an external company. Obviously, the connectivity is quite good, it's quite affordable in India than is compared to in this region. So it also depends upon, as he was also rightly saying, Frank was saying that, like, it also depends upon how well we are connected and how well do we get the connectivity at the end user's level. But I think in principle, as a concept, I think cloud is there to stay in the long term. But how and when we reach there, it's to be seen in the next few years.
Steve, you mentioned the telcos and CDNs also. Do you see cooperation between the broadcasters and telco operators in the region to work together? Let's say in the UAE, DU has broadcast division. Etisalat also has some broadcast services. Outside that, do you see the cooperation between the broadcasters and telco operators to be able to provide cloud services, high bandwidth, and CDNs?
Most definitely, yes. We see broadcasters looking into the telco space more and more. And I think it's a lesson we continue to learn over the last couple of decades in terms of leveraging the standardization of IT commodity systems and hardware. We continue to do this. Every month we see a new device that leverages commodity hardware devices with a software layer, because the IT industry is a very much standardised industry, and that's what we're lacking in the broadcast industry. We have a proliferation of systems and formats. They continue to grow, and we are continually challenged to meet the demands of all those formats and to distribute those accordingly. So I think we need to look at more standardisation. I mean, there are certainly efforts to do that in different sectors. But it's a really tough nut to crack, because obviously broadcast vendors have made massive investments in their platforms, their technologies, their people, everything. So to then pay license fees or to default to standards that they don't have any ownership in, of course, then there's an issue with profitability in that respect, or losing market segment. So there has to be a middle ground at some point in time, and I think that middle ground is reached when, after some time of moving more towards that IP domain, the networks, the CDNs, as I mentioned before. I'm not saying it's happening today or tomorrow, but it will eventually happen. And I think it also depends on how much you value your content. We see again a proliferation of channels on satellite, but every channel has a different value of its content. Some the content is cheaply produced and thrown away, basically, just to have a presence. And others are producing high quality content. They need to safeguard that. That's their intellectual property. They have ownership of that, and they need to somehow recoup the cost of producing that content any way they can, repurposing it for different
Andy,
markets.
you have multiple sites of operation. You have content produced in Lebanon and maybe Egypt, other places. Do you have your own cloud? Do you call it a cloud, or how do you share the content and manage it between different sites?
We don't have our own cloud. We have a fairly large MPLS network, and we use that in conjunction with satellites to deliver live shows and other pre-recorded content into Dubai for transmission. So,
Is it managed under one umbrella of a management system, media management system? Is it?
not at the moment, no. There's a meter management system called MCR, basically, who organise all our in and out feeds. But we are expanding the MPLS network as connectivity becomes better into various regions. We've just increased it into Egypt now. We've got the NBC Massa launch.
Do you feel any security issues with the IP connections, MPLS?
Good question.
Dom-
It's a good question.
Dominic, you have also
question, but
your,
you can answer it.
We've not had any
you have
issues.
also your own MPLS network,
Yeah, of
I
course.
think.
And I think this discussion about the cloud has been interesting because everyone assumes it's this wonderful thing that's in the ether and not within our own private networks that are protected. We're all happily moving content around over MPLS networks. We're happily receiving contents from providers over networks. Yet we're not happy to talk about hosting our own private cloud
Yeah.
and using the benefits of virtualization and using the benefits of big data, which we should get back to, enabling us to have multi-dimensional metadata, enabling us to have business intelligence and broadcast intelligence that we've all said we want. Yet we talk about security, we talk about expense. The only barrier is the support from vendors to do proper virtualization.
The thing that you bring up the good points here. The thing that we're finding is quite important to accomplish that goal. All the points have been brought up about security, availability, performance. We have customers that are asking us to bring together their multiple site operations. We have lots of them. And the challenges of doing this are latency and bandwidth. So once those two factors start to come together, primarily bandwidth, the ability to be able to share access to that data over distance offers new opportunities to be able to leverage your content in a more efficient manner. From my particular perspective in the media business, I take a different view of cloud than the way the IT business does. For most of IT, cloud is just either very deep archive, such as a Amazon cloud service, as an example, or a Google or a Microsoft type version of this, or it is a process done remotely on servers somewhere else. Therefore, there is no time sensitivity to that process. But nonetheless, the data has to get there. And you've got to be willing to put it somewhere and feel secure about it. And that when you need it back, that you get it back on your time, not the cloud provider's time. So if it's a process that you're trying to accomplish and do it in a lower cost way, or it's a repository, and you're trying to store the content in a lower cost way, but have the ability to get it back at any time. For us, we see partnering with the telcos, this topic that was brought up before, is a way that we're in the near term accomplishing a cloud environment, a way to do process or deep storage in partnership with the telco for you, the broadcaster. We're doing this in Australia, in this case Telstra, and they already have the wire connected to all the broadcasters, 7, 9, 10, ABC, SBS. All of them have archives. And they all thought, why are we all spending all this money to be archiving our own stuff when we share it with each other? Couldn't we use somebody else to provide that for us at lower cost? And we're partnering with Telstra to do exactly that. So in your regions, what can we do to accomplish that goal? That's a deep repository process. And then the second part is extracting value out of it. So the virtualization in this business, it's time we get there. In our labs, we've already virtualized transcode applications, and we feel really ready to bring this into a customer space, whether it's Rosette or Vantage or some other application. The ability to run that on virtualized hardware, we have a couple customers that are doing this in their labs now. And they're very excited about doing this because what happens? When you could virtualize the license of that app, and you don't need a server, you don't have to run it on your server. You can run it on a provider's server. Maybe a provider server that's got the media stored in their environment, not yours, and that lowers your cost. Converts it into a format to deliver into a mobile platform. Maybe you want to experiment with delivering into a mobile space. You're not sure what the revenue opportunity is. The virtualization possible in cloud for transcode, the ability to do a deep archive repository, and therefore